The signal came on a Tuesday morning, though no one on Earth knew what day it was in the rest of the galaxy. Captain Minho was drinking his third cup of coffee when the communications array started screaming. Not the usual beeps and chirps of deep space exploration, but a full alarm that made every crew member on the horizon's edge jump from their seats. "Captain, you need to see this," the communications officer said, her hands shaking over the controls. Minho set down his cup and moved to the main screen. What he saw made his blood run cold, not from fear, but from the raw desperation in the message. The signal was repeating in hundreds of languages, many that Earth's computers couldn't even recognize yet. But the universal translator was working overtime, and the meaning was clear. "Please, anyone. We are dying. The swarm comes. 17 worlds are gone. We cannot stop them. If anyone can hear this, please help us." Dr. Yuna pushed her way to the front of the bridge. She was the ship's lead scientist, a woman who had spent her whole life dreaming of meeting aliens. Now that dream was turning into a nightmare. "Run it again," she said quietly. The message played once more. This time, images came with it. Burning cities, ships breaking apart in space, creatures that looked like insects, but as big as buildings, tearing through structures made of crystal and light. And then the faces. So many different faces. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like they were made of living glass. All of them were afraid. "They're losing a war," Minho said. He had been in the Korean Navy before joining the space program. He knew what desperation looked like. "Captain, there's more," the communications officer said. "I'm picking up data files attached to the signal. It looks like a database. Information about the galaxy." Yuna's fingers flew across her tablet as the data downloaded. Her eyes grew wider with each passing second. "There are 12 species in something called the Galactic Assembly," she said. "They've been at peace for over 1,000 years. No wars, no conflicts. They share resources, technology, knowledge." She looked up at Minho. "And now something called the Velthari swarm is killing them all." Minho studied the data. The Velthari were a hive mind, billions of creatures controlled by a single intelligence. They ate everything in their path, turning whole worlds into feeding grounds. The assembly had tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for defense, not war. They had no armies, no soldiers. They had peacekeepers and scientists, but not warriors. "Look at this," Yuna said, pulling up another file. Her voice was strange, almost amused. "They have a classification system for planets. It's based on how dangerous the world is. Class 1 is safe, gentle weather, calm ecosystems. Class 12 is the highest rating." "What's Earth's rating?" Minho asked. Yuna turned her tablet around. On the screen, in letters that the translator rendered in perfect Korean, were the words, "Earth, Class 12 Death World. Warning, extreme gravity, volatile weather systems, apex predators in all ecosystems, intelligent species evolved through competition and warfare. Do not approach." For a moment, no one on the bridge spoke. Then someone laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that broke the tension. "They think we're the dangerous ones," the helmsman said. Minho looked at the images of the dying aliens again, the burning worlds, the crying children, if that's what they were. He thought about his own daughter, safe at home on Earth. He thought about what it would be like if monsters from space came to destroy everything he loved. "Open a channel," he said. "All frequencies. Maximum range." "Captain?" The communications officer looked confused. "Do it." The channel opened. Minho took a deep breath and spoke. "This is Captain Minho of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your message. We are coming to help." The bridge was silent for 3 full minutes. Then, impossibly, an answer came back. The face on the screen was like nothing Minho had ever imagined. It looked like a person made of crystal, light moving through its body like blood. Its voice was soft and filled with disbelief. You are from Earth? The being said. The Class 12 world? We are, Minho replied. My name is Minho. I speak for my ship. What's your name? I am Ambassador Krelix of the Galactic Assembly. The crystal being seemed to be shaking. Captain Minho, I do not think you understand. Your world is classified as forbidden. No Class 12 species has ever joined civilized space. Your planet is too dangerous. You are too dangerous. Yuna stepped forward. We heard your message. You said 17 worlds are gone. How many people lived on those worlds? Krelix was quiet for a moment. Billions. Billions of lives lost. Then you need dangerous, Minho said. You need someone who knows how to fight. That's us. We have no right to ask this of you, Krelix said. We have nothing to offer. We are losing. By the time you arrive, there may be nothing left to save. Minho looked at Yuna. She nodded. He looked at his crew. Every single one of them stood a little straighter, ready. Ambassador Krelix, Earth has a saying, no one fights alone. We're coming, and we're not coming alone. What do you mean? The alien asked. We're going to bring a fleet. 3 weeks later, the largest armada Earth had ever assembled gathered in orbit. 200 ships, not exploration vessels like the Horizon's Edge, but warships, carriers and destroyers, frigates and dreadnoughts, ships built by humans who had spent thousands of years learning how to fight. Admiral Day stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the fleet form up. He was an old man, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands from a dozen conflicts. He had never expected to command a space fleet, but then again, he had never expected aliens to need Earth's help. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Good, Day replied. Set course for assembly space. Maximum speed. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, Day looked at the star map. Somewhere out there, billions of people were dying. They had called for help, probably not expecting anyone to answer. They were about to learn what it meant when Deathworlders heard a cry for help, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Assembly Forward Base Epsilon was the largest structure Admiral Day had ever seen. It hung in space like a small moon, its surface covered in docking bays and communication towers. Ships from a dozen different species moved around it like insects around a hive. But when the human fleet arrived, everything stopped. They're staring at us, Lieutenant Hana said from her position at the tactical station. Day smiled slightly. Can you blame them? I'd stare too if I saw 200 warships appear out of nowhere. The docking procedure took hours. Human ships were built differently from assembly vessels. They were heavier, armored, designed to take hits and keep fighting. The docking clamps had to be adjusted 3 times before the flagship could properly attach. When Day finally stepped onto the station, he understood why the aliens had been so worried. The gravity was wrong. Not dangerously wrong, but noticeably lighter than Earth standard. Day felt like he could jump twice as high. The air was thinner, too, though still breathable. The temperature was cool, almost cold. Is this comfortable for you? Ambassador Krelix asked. The crystal being was waiting at the airlock, along with a dozen other aliens that Day couldn't even begin to categorize. It's fine, Day said, which was true. He had trained in worse conditions. Every human had. Krelix seemed surprised. We can adjust the environmental controls. This is the maximum gravity our station can produce. Most species find it uncomfortable. Hana, standing beside Day, looked confused. This is your maximum? This is like half of Earth's gravity. The aliens exchanged glances. One of them, a being covered in soft purple fur, made a sound like a whimper. The first cultural exchange meeting was a disaster, though not in the way anyone expected. Dr. Yuna had been invited to give a presentation about Earth. She had prepared a simple overview, nothing too complicated. just the basics about human evolution, Earth's ecosystem, and human culture. 10 minutes into the presentation, 3 aliens had fainted. "I don't understand," Una said, looking at the unconscious beings being carried out by medical staff. "I was just explaining about the food chain." Counselor Thixar, an empathic species that looked like a walking plant, trembled as he spoke. "Dr. Una, you just told us that your species evolved by hunting other apex predators for food." "Well, yes," Una said. "Early humans were persistence hunters. We would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, sometimes for days." Another alien made a choking sound and had to leave the room. "And you showed us images of creatures called lions and bears and sharks," Thixar continued. "You said these creatures share your planet. You said human children are taught to avoid them." "Right," Una nodded. "They're dangerous." "Dr. Una," Thixar said slowly, "any one of those creatures could destroy an entire assembly colony. You have hundreds of such species on your world, and you survived. You didn't just survive, you thrived." Una finally understood. "Oh, you're scared of Earth." "Terrified," Thixar admitted. Things didn't improve when Lieutenant Hana gave a demonstration of standard military training. The assembly had prepared a training ground, a large room with obstacles and targets. Hana had brought a squad of Marines with her. They were going to show some basic exercises, nothing too intense. "We'll start with a simple run," Hana explained to the watching aliens. 5 kilometers with standard equipment." The Marines took off at a steady pace. They were wearing full armor and carrying weapons. The alien observers watched their monitoring screens with growing horror. "Her heart rate is elevated," one alien scientist said, pointing at Hana's vital signs. "She must be in distress." "No," Engineer Junho said. He was standing with the observers, helping to explain human capabilities. "That's normal for exercise." "Exercise?" The alien looked confused. "She's running at speeds that would kill most species, while carrying half her body weight in equipment. In gravity, higher than her homeworld." "Earth's gravity is actually twice this," Junho corrected. "This is easy for her." The alien sat down suddenly, its legs giving out. After the run, Hana moved to the obstacle course. She climbed walls, crawled through tunnels, jumped across gaps. The other Marines did the same. At one point, Hana fell from a height that would have seriously injured most assembly species. She rolled, stood up, and kept going. "Is she injured?" someone asked. "Nope," Junho said cheerfully. "Humans are really good at falling. We have a whole system for it, lots of practice." By the end of the demonstration, half the observers had left. The ones who remained looked at the humans with a mixture of awe and fear. But the real shock came at dinner. The assembly had prepared a welcome feast. It was meant to be a friendly gesture, a way to build relationships. They had researched human food preferences and tried to prepare something suitable. The meal was bland, not bad, just gentle. Soft textures, mild flavors, safe. "This is very kind," Admiral Day said politely, eating the paste-like substance on his plate. "Thank you." Krelix seemed pleased. "We wanted you to feel welcome. We studied your nutritional requirements. This should be perfectly safe for human consumption." Lieutenant Hana, sitting nearby, pulled out a small bottle from her pocket. She shook some red powder onto her food. "What is that?" an alien asked, leaning forward. "Hot pepper flakes," Hana said. "Want some?" She offered the bottle. The alien reached out carefully and took the tiniest pinch. It placed the flakes on its food and took a small bite. The screaming started immediately. Medical staff rushed in. The alien was crying, its mouth wide open, making sounds of pure agony. Water didn't help. Nothing helped. It took 20 minutes for the pain to fade. "I'm so sorry," Hana said, genuinely distressed. "I didn't know it would hurt you. It's just flavor." Dr. Una checked her database. "Oh no, capsaicin, the chemical that makes peppers hot. Most species experience it as pure pain. Humans are one of the only species that eats it for pleasure. You eat pain? Krelix asked. On purpose? It's not pain to us, Yuna tried to explain. It's just spicy. We like it. The assembly staff removed all human food from the dining area. It was classified as a chemical weapon. That night, Counselor Thixar filed his psychological report on humans. It was 17 pages long and marked with the highest warning level. Humans do not simply survive on a Class 12 death world, he wrote. They dominate it. They eat toxins for pleasure. They exercise by deliberately damaging their muscles. They find joy in competition and conflict. Their entertainment consists of watching simulated violence and danger, and yet, they are capable of great kindness. They came here to help us, knowing they might die. I do not understand them. I am not sure I want to. 3 days later, the Velthari attacked. The swarm came without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right on top of the station. Hundreds of bioships, living vessels covered in teeth and claws. Alarms screamed across the station. Assembly ships began to evacuate, following standard protocol. The human Marines didn't evacuate. Lieutenant Hana and her squad grabbed their weapons and headed for the hull breach. They could hear the Velthari tearing through the outer decks, the sound of metal screaming as the creatures ripped the station apart. All personnel, retreat to safe zones, the station AI announced. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Hana ignored it. She positioned her Marines at a choke point and waited. The first Velthari came around the corner like a nightmare. It was huge, all chitin and claws, moving faster than anything that size should move. Its mandibles could crush steel. Hana shot it. Once. The railgun round punched through its armor like paper. The creature fell, twitching. More came, dozens of them. The Marines held the line, their weapons firing with mechanical precision. The sound was deafening. The Velthari kept coming, and the humans kept killing them. 15 minutes later, it was over. The Velthari retreated. The assembly couldn't believe it. The swarm never retreated, but they had met something they had never encountered before. They had met humans who weren't afraid. Admiral Day surveyed the aftermath. The station was damaged, but intact. The human casualties were light, mostly minor injuries. The Velthari bodies were being cleared away by shocked assembly workers. We thought you were dangerous because of your planet, Krelix said quietly, standing beside Day. We were wrong. You're dangerous because of what your planet made you become. Day nodded. We're here to help, but we fight our own way. I'm beginning to understand that, Krelix said, and I'm not sure if I should be grateful or terrified. Be both, Day suggested. That's what we do. The war room aboard Admiral Day's flagship was packed with beings from a dozen different species. Holographic displays showed the current state of the war, and it didn't look good. The Velthari had taken 3 more worlds in the past week. The assembly was running out of time. General Brixenol, the assembly's highest military commander, gestured at the map with one of his 6 limbs. He looked like an octopus that had learned to stand upright, his skin shifting colors as he spoke. The swarm is moving toward the Covenant worlds, Brixenol said. These 3 systems hold 40 billion civilians. We must evacuate them before the Velthari arrive. How long do we have? Admiral Day asked. 2 weeks, perhaps 3 if we're fortunate. Day studied the map. Commander Siok, his tactical officer, stood beside him. She was young for her rank, but she had a gift for seeing patterns others missed. We don't have enough ships to evacuate 40 billion people in 3 weeks, Siok said, even if we used every transport in the fleet. Then we must do what we can, Brixenol replied. We will save who we can save and mourn those we cannot. Or, Day said slowly, we stop the Velthari before they reach the Covenant worlds. The room went silent. Admiral, Brixenol said carefully, we cannot stop them. We have tried. Every battle we fight, we lose. The best we can do is delay them while civilians escape. You can't stop them with your tactics, Day agreed, but you're not using our tactics. Dr. Yuna pulled up a new set of data. She had been studying the Velthari for weeks now, analyzing every battle, every encounter. The Velthari fight in swarms, she explained. Overwhelming numbers, constant pressure. They expect enemies to fall back, to retreat. That's what the assembly always does. Because staying to fight means death, another assembly officer said. We preserve our forces. We save our people. That is how civilized species wage war. Commander Siok laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. That's not war, she said. That's running away slowly. On Earth, we learned something different. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them. She pulled up a tactical display. The Velthari are heading for the Covenant worlds along this route. There's a choke point here in the Relan system. If we position our forces there, we can hit them as they come through. We've tried defensive positions before, Brixnall said. They simply overwhelm us. Because you defend and then retreat when things get bad, Siok replied. We're not going to retreat. We're going to attack. She expanded the display, showing ship positions. We'll put the assembly fleet here, holding the center. The human fleet will split into 3 groups. When the Velthari engage the center, we'll hit them from 3 sides at once. That will put human ships directly in the path of the swarm, an alien officer protested. You'll take enormous casualties. Yes, Day said simply. We will. But why? Why would you sacrifice your people for ours? Day looked at the officer. Because if we don't stop them here, 40 billion people die. Human mathematics is simple. We risk thousands to save billions. That's called an acceptable loss. The assembly officers looked horrified. Brixnall's skin turned a dark purple color that Dr. Yuna's database said indicated deep distress. You speak of lives as numbers, Brixnall said, as if they are currency to be spent. Every commander does, Day replied. The difference is, we're honest about it. Tell me, General, if you evacuate the Covenant worlds, how many people will you save? Brixnall hesitated. Perhaps 12 billion, if we're very lucky. So you're already choosing to let 28 billion die. You're just not calling it that. The silence was thick enough to cut. At least we're not sacrificing our own people, Brixnall said quietly. Neither are we, Day replied. We're asking them to fight. There's a difference. Corporal Nari stood in the briefing room aboard her carrier, listening to the mission details. She was a pilot, one of the best. She flew a fighter craft that was barely bigger than a car, armed with missiles and railguns. It was fast, maneuverable, and very fragile. The Velthari bioships have thick armor, the briefing officer explained. You'll need to get close to find weak points, visual range, maybe closer. One of the other pilots raised her hand. How close is visual range against something moving at combat speeds? Very close, the officer admitted. Close enough that if you miss, you'll probably hit them. Just not with your weapons. The pilots absorbed this. They knew what it meant. Some of them would die. Maybe most of them. They had known that when they signed up. Any questions? The officer asked. Yeah, Nari said. What's the kill count bonus for this mission? The room erupted in laughter. Even the officer smiled. Let's just focus on getting kills at all, he said. Bonuses come later. After the briefing, Nari sat in her cockpit, running through pre-flight checks. Her fighter was called the Dancing Blade, a name she had painted on the hull herself. She had flown it in 3 combat missions already. It had 62 holes in it from enemy fire, all patched and repaired. Nervous? Her wingman asked over the radio. Always, Nari replied. Keeps me sharp. I heard the assembly pilots refuse to fly these things. Say they're death traps. They're not wrong, Nari said, patting her control panel. But they're our death traps. The Velthari came exactly when Dr. Yuna predicted. Thousands of bioships, organic vessels that looked like they had been grown instead of built. They moved through space like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated by the hive mind. The assembly fleet held the center of the defensive line. Their ships were beautiful, elegant things covered in lights and artistic designs. They opened fire at maximum range, their energy weapons creating colorful displays in the darkness of space. The Velthari ignored them and kept coming. All human vessels, this is Admiral Day. Execute attack pattern Omega. I'll see you all on the other side. The human fleet moved. They didn't fire at long range. They didn't try to keep their distance. They charged directly into the Velthari formation at full speed, their engines burning bright. The assembly officers watched in horror. "They're going to die," someone whispered. "No," Dr. Yuna said, her eyes fixed on the display. "They're going to fight." The human ships hit the Velthari swarm like a hammer striking glass. Railguns fired at point-blank range, tearing through bioships. Missiles launched in waves, too many for the Velthari to dodge. Human vessels rammed enemy ships when their weapons ran dry, using their armored hulls as weapons. It was brutal. It was violent. It was nothing like the careful, measured warfare the assembly practiced. It was effective. Corporal Nari flew her fighter through the chaos, her hands steady on the controls. A Velthari bioship loomed in front of her, its weapons tracking her movement. She jinked left, pulled up hard, and put 3 missiles into its underbelly. The ship exploded. She flew through the debris. "That's 15!" her wingman shouted. "Lost count after 12!" Nari replied, already targeting her next victim. The G-forces would have killed most assembly pilots. Nari barely noticed. She had trained in 8 times Earth's gravity. This was nothing. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Velthari swarm was broken. Not destroyed, but shattered. They retreated for the first time in the war, running away from an enemy that didn't know how to quit. The human fleet had taken heavy casualties, 40 ships destroyed, thousands of lives lost. But they had won. Admiral Day stood on his bridge, looking at the casualty reports. His flagship was damaged, fire still burning in 3 decks. His uniform was torn, blood on his face from a hull breach that had nearly killed him. "Sir," his communications officer said, "General Brixenall is requesting to speak with you." "Put him through." The general's face appeared on the screen. His skin was pale, almost white. "Admiral Day," Brixenall said slowly, "I owe you an apology. And my gratitude. You saved the Covenant worlds." "We did our job," Day replied. "No," Brixenall said. "You did something we could never do. You fought like you had nothing to lose, like you were already dead." "An old Earth philosophy," Day said. "A warrior who has accepted death fights without hesitation. Fear is what kills you. We just refuse to be afraid." "I understand now why your world is classified as it is," Brixenall said. "And I understand why you came when we called for help. You are not cruel. You are not monsters. You are simply yourselves. And that is terrifying enough." Day smiled. It was a tired smile. The smile of a man who had seen too much death but would keep fighting anyway. "General, the Velthari are going to come again. Harder this time. They know we can hurt them now." "This was just the first round. Then we will face them together," Brixenall said. "And perhaps you can teach us how Deathworlders fight." "Gladly," Day said. "Lesson 1, never fight fair. Lesson 2, always fight to win. Lesson 3, there is no lesson 3. That's it." Brixenall's skin shifted to a color that Dr. Yuna's database identified as amused confusion. "Your species is very strange, Admiral." "We know," Day replied. "We wouldn't have it any other way." Captain Gina stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars streak past as her ship hunted the enemy. She was a career officer, 30 years in the Navy, with scars on her body and ghosts in her mind. She had lost people in every war she had ever fought. This war was no different. "Contact," her tactical officer reported. "Velthari hive ship, bearing 270. It's a big one." Gina studied the readings. The hive ship was massive, larger than anything they had encountered before. It was heading away from them, trying to escape into deep space. "Pursuit course," Gina ordered. "All weapons ready." "Captain, we're alone out here," her first officer warned. "The nearest human ship is 4 hours away. If that thing has support, then we'll deal with it," Gina interrupted. "I'm not letting it escape." The Indomitable was a dreadnought, one of the biggest ships in the human fleet. Its weapons could crack a moon, its armor could withstand almost anything, and right now, it was very angry. The hive ship tried to run. It was fast for something so large, but it couldn't outrun a human warship. The Indomitable closed the distance in 20 minutes. "Fire," Gina said calmly. The first salvo punched through the hive ship's armor. The creature screamed, a sound that came through the radio in waves of static and pain. But it didn't stop running. "Again," Gina ordered. The second salvo crippled it. The hive ship's engines failed, leaving it drifting in space, but Gina could see movement on its hull. Smaller creatures, warriors, preparing to defend their dying home. "Prepare boarding teams," Gina said. Her first officer stared at her. "Captain, we could just destroy it from here. Why risk—" "Because we need to understand them," Gina replied. "We need prisoners. We need information." The boarding action was brutal. Ensign Hyun led the first team through the breached hull, his armor sealed tight against the vacuum. The inside of the hive ship was like walking through a living nightmare. The walls pulsed. The air was thick with spores. Everything was organic, grown instead of built. "Contact front!" someone shouted. The Velthari warriors came from everywhere at once. They were smaller than the ones they had fought on the station, but faster, designed for close combat, all claws and teeth and rage. Hyun's team met them with steel and fire. The fight moved through the corridors of the dying ship. The humans advanced meter by meter, clearing rooms, securing passages. They lost people. Hyun watched a friend get dragged into a side tunnel, heard the screaming, couldn't help. But they kept going. That was what humans did. They kept going. After 3 hours, they reached the core of the ship. And there, surrounded by dead warriors, they found it. The Queen Node. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of a human. Its body was bloated, covered in strange organs that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Tubes connected it to the ship's systems, feeding it, keeping it alive. Its eyes, it had dozens of eyes, watched them with something that might have been fear. "Captain Gina," Hyun reported, "we've secured the target. It's still alive." "Good." Gina's voice crackled over the radio. "Bring it back. Carefully." Moving the Queen Node took 6 people and a lot of patience. It made sounds the whole time, high-pitched clicks and whistles that made everyone's skin crawl. But it didn't fight. It couldn't. Without its warriors, without its ship, it was helpless. Back on the Indomitable, they put it in a specially prepared containment cell. Dr. Yuna arrived on Gina's ship 2 days later, bringing equipment and excitement. "Do you know what you've done?" Yuna asked, practically running into the containment area. "No one has ever captured a Queen Node alive, ever." "Is it intelligent?" Gina asked. "That's what I'm here to find out." Yuna set up her equipment around the cell. Sensors, cameras, audio recorders. The Queen Node watched her with its many eyes, making soft, clicking sounds. "It's trying to communicate," Yuna said. "The clicks are organized. There's a pattern." For 2 weeks, Yuna worked with the Queen Node. She played sounds, showed images, tried to build a vocabulary, and slowly, impossibly, it started to work. The Queen Node wasn't stupid. It was alien, yes, but not mindless. It learned. It responded. And eventually it started to tell its story. Ensign Hyun volunteered to help with the research. He spent hours in the containment area, watching Yuna work. He had killed hundreds of Velthari in battle, but seeing this one up close, helpless and alone, made him think. "Why did you come to our galaxy?" Yuna asked the Queen Node one day. She had set up a simple communication system, symbols the creature could touch to form sentences. The Queen Node was slow to respond. When it did, the answer was simple. Hungry, world dying, needed food. Yuna felt something cold settle in her stomach. "You're eating civilizations because you're starving?" "Yes, no choice. Must feed swarm, must survive." Hyun stepped forward. "You've killed billions of people, destroyed entire worlds." The Queen Node's eyes fixed on him. "Yes, you killed millions of swarm, destroyed hive ships. What difference?" Hyun opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. The revelation spread through the fleet like wildfire. The Velthari weren't evil. They weren't monsters who killed for pleasure. They were desperate, starving, doing anything to survive, just like humans would in the same situation. Ambassador Krelix called an emergency council meeting. Representatives from all the assembly species gathered, along with human officers. The mood was tense. "This changes everything," one alien said. "If the Velthari are simply trying to survive, then we are the ones denying them life." "They're still killing us," another countered. "Survival doesn't excuse genocide." Admiral Day listened to the arguments, his face unreadable. Finally he spoke. "On Earth, we have a saying. Desperate people do terrible things. The Velthari are desperate. I understand that. But that doesn't mean we let them eat us." "So what do you propose?" Krelix asked. "We keep fighting," Day said, "but we also start thinking about what happens after the fighting stops." "After?" General Brixnall looked confused. "You mean after we destroy them?" "Or after we find another solution," Day replied. The Assembly Council erupted into argument. The idea of showing mercy to the Velthari seemed insane. They had lost too much, suffered too much. But Captain Gina sat in her quarters that night, thinking about the Queen Node in the cell below. She thought about how it had asked for food, not for weapons, how it had shown them images of Velthari children, if that's what they were, how it had looked at them with fear. "Captain," Ensign Hyun said, entering her quarters. "Permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "What are we doing here?" Hyun asked. "We came to help the Assembly fight monsters. But what if the monsters are just people? Alien people, but still people." "I've been asking myself the same question," Gina admitted. "I've made friends here," Hyun continued. "Alien friends, species I never knew existed. They've shared their food with me, even though it tastes awful. They've shown me their homes, their families. And I've realized something." "What's that?" "We bond. Humans bond with anyone who shows us kindness. It's what we do. We form packs, tribes, families, even with aliens, even with former enemies." He paused. "But we're also persistence predators. When we decide something is prey, we don't stop until it's dead." "And you're wondering which one the Velthari are," Gina said. "Potential friends or prey?" "Yes, ma'am." Gina looked at the star map on her wall. The Velthari territory was marked in red. So much space, so many lives. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know Admiral Day is right. We need to start thinking about what comes after. Because this war will end eventually. And we need to decide what kind of galaxy we want to live in." Meanwhile, deep in Velthari space, the hive mind was learning too. Swarm Prime Vexithra studied the captured data from destroyed hive ships. Images of humans, videos of battles, recordings of human speech. It didn't understand everything, but it understood enough. The humans were different. They fought differently. They thought differently. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. They died before they quit. The swarm had fought many species. None of them had been like this. Vex Ithra analyzed the Battle of the Relin system. The humans had lost 40 ships, but considered it a victory. Any other species would have retreated after losing so much. The humans had celebrated. They were insane. Or were they? Vex Ithra studied more carefully. The humans had saved 40 billion lives. They had traded 40 ships for 40 billion people. By that calculation, it was the best trade in the history of warfare. The swarm had never thought about war that way. The swarm thought about survival, about food, about the hive. Individual losses meant nothing, but to humans it seemed individual losses meant everything, and that somehow made them willing to accept those losses. Vex Ithra didn't understand, but it was beginning to realize something important. The humans couldn't be beaten with numbers. They couldn't be scared. They couldn't be broken. If the swarm wanted to survive, it would need to find a different way. Back on the Indomitable, Dr. Yuna made a breakthrough. "Captain Gina," she said urgently, "I need you to see this." In the containment cell, the Queen node had created something. Using its own biological material, it had built a model, a tiny version of a world with continents and oceans. "What is it?" Gina asked. "It's home," Yuna said. "The Velthari homeworld. Look." The model showed a dying planet, seas drying up, continents turning to dust, and in the centers of the continents, massive hive structures, slowly starving. "How long?" Gina asked. "According to this, the Velthari have been dying for centuries. The swarm expansion isn't conquest. It's a species trying not to go extinct." Gina looked at the Queen node. It looked back, its eyes reflecting the light. "Show this to Admiral Day," Gina said quietly, "and tell him we need to talk. All of us, including the Assembly." "What are you thinking, Captain?" "I'm thinking," Gina said, "that maybe we're all monsters, and maybe we're all just trying to survive, and maybe there's a way to do both." The war room was silent as Dr. Yuna finished her presentation. On the holographic display, the dying Velthari homeworld rotated slowly, its oceans shrinking, its continents turning brown. "How long do they have?" President Bora asked. She had traveled from Earth specifically for this meeting, knowing it would determine the fate of trillions of lives. 5 years, Yuna said quietly. Maybe less. The Velthari expansion isn't about conquest. It's about desperation. They're trying to find enough resources to save their home world before it dies completely. Ambassador Krelix made a sound like breaking glass. "Billions of our people are dead, worlds destroyed, and you're telling us they were just hungry?" "Yes," Yuna said. "I know it doesn't make it right, but it explains why they fight so hard, why they never negotiate. They literally have no choice." General Brixenol's skin flashed through several colors, finally settling on dark red. "Then we destroy them before they destroy us. End the threat permanently." "We can do that," Admiral Day said, standing. "We have their homeworld's location now. We could send the fleet. End this war in a week." The Assembly representatives leaned forward, eager. "But," Day continued, "that would make us no different from them. We would be killing billions to save billions. Where's the line? When do we become the monsters?" "They started this war," an alien officer protested. "They invaded our space." "Because they were dying," Captain Gina said, entering the conversation. "I've spent weeks studying the Queen node we captured. It's not evil. It's not cruel. It's just trying to keep its species alive, same as any of us would." President Bora stood up. She was an older woman, gray hair and kind eyes, but everyone in the room knew she had the authority to end this debate with a single word. "The question isn't whether we can destroy them," she said. "The question is whether we should. And I say no." The room erupted into chaos. They've killed billions of us! They'll keep coming! We have the power to end this! Bora waited for the noise to die down. When it didn't, she simply spoke louder. On Earth, we have a long history of war. Thousands of years of killing each other over resources, territory, beliefs. We've committed genocides. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. And do you know what we learned? The room quieted. We learned that there's always another way. Always. We just have to be brave enough to find it. What are you proposing? Krelix asked. Diplomacy, Bora said. We talk to them. We negotiate. We find a solution that doesn't end with anyone going extinct. They're a hive mind, General Brixenel said. They don't negotiate. They consume. Then we teach them, Bora replied. Just like we're teaching the Assembly how to fight. We can teach the Velthari how to talk. Diplomat Tai Yang stepped forward. He was a specialist in conflict resolution, a man who had ended 3 wars on Earth without firing a shot. He had been waiting for this moment. I've been studying the communication patterns Dr. Yuna established with the Queen Node, Tai Yang said. I believe I can make contact with the Central Velthari intelligence, the one they call Swarm Prime. To what purpose? Krelix asked. To offer them an alternative to extinction, Tai Yang said simply. The Assembly voted. It wasn't unanimous. Many wanted to continue the war, to wipe out the Velthari completely. But President Bora had made it clear. Humanity would not participate in genocide. If the Assembly wanted human help, it would be on human terms. In the end, fear won over hate. The Assembly was terrified of losing their human allies. They agreed to try. 3 days later, Lieutenant Hana led a small team to the edge of Velthari space. They broadcast a message on all frequencies, using the communication method Dr. Yuna had developed. We wish to talk. No weapons. No tricks. Just talk. For 2 days, there was no response. Then a single bioship appeared. It held position at extreme range, weapons ready, but not firing. This is it, Tai Yang said. He was nervous, but he didn't show it. If this works, we end the war. If it doesn't, we die. Hana finished. I know. Let's not die. They approached the bioship slowly. Every sensor on their vessel was active, watching for any sign of attack. But the Velthari ship just waited. When they were close enough, a voice came through their speakers. It was strange, layered, like 1,000 voices speaking as one. Why do you come? Tai Yang took a deep breath. We come to offer life. Your species is dying. We know this. We can help. Why? We have killed your allies. We are enemies. Because we understand desperation, Tai Yang said, and because we choose to be better than our worst instincts. There was a long pause. Then, explain. Over the next 6 hours, Tai Yang explained humanity's plan. The Assembly had uninhabited worlds, systems with resources but no colonies. Hundreds of them. With human help, these worlds could be terraformed, made suitable for Velthari colonization. It would take years, decades even, but it would save both species. Why would you do this? The voice asked. We are your enemies. We were, Tai Yang agreed. But we don't have to stay enemies. On Earth, we have a saying. The best way to destroy an enemy is to make them a friend. Your species is strange, the voice said. You fight with great violence, but now you offer great kindness. We do not understand you. Join the club, Lieutenant Hana muttered. We don't understand us either. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Swarm Prime Vexithra was cautious, suspicious. The Velthari had never encountered mercy before. They didn't trust it. But they were dying. And sometimes, desperation makes you accept help from unexpected places. The treaty was signed on neutral ground, a small moon between territories. President Bora represented humanity. Ambassador Krelix represented the assembly, and a massive Velthari Queen Mother, Hive Mother Kalseth, represented the swarm. Kalseth was enormous, carried on a platform by hundreds of smaller Velthari. Her body was covered in scars from 100 battles. Her eyes, all 47 of them, studied the humans with something that might have been curiosity. "You are the Deathworlders," Kalseth said through translators. "The ones who fight like the universe itself has angered them." "That's us," Bora said with a slight smile. "Why show mercy now? You have won. You could destroy us." "Because destruction is easy," Bora replied. "Creation is hard. We choose the hard path." Kalseth was quiet for a long moment. "You confuse us, but we accept. We will stop the attacks. We will move to the offered worlds. We will try to understand you." The treaty was simple. The Velthari would cease all hostile actions immediately. In return, the Assembly would provide territory and resources. Humanity would provide the technology and expertise for terraforming. But the real work was just beginning. Engineer Junho stood on the surface of the first colony world designated for the Velthari. It was a barren rock, no atmosphere, no water. But it had minerals, nutrients, everything the Velthari needed to build their hive structures. "We're going to turn this into a garden world," Junho said, reviewing his plans. "It'll take 10 years, maybe 15, but when we're done, it'll support billions of Velthari." Beside him, a Velthari engineer studied the plans. The creature looked like a mantis the size of a car, its mind linked to the greater swarm but still individual enough to think. "You do this for us," the Velthari said, "even after war." "Yeah," Junho said. "Because what's the alternative? We all just keep killing each other until there's no one left? That's stupid." The Velthari made a clicking sound that their translator interpreted as laughter. "Your species is very strange, but perhaps good strange." "I'll take it," Junho said. Years passed. The first Velthari colony world was completed ahead of schedule. Millions of Velthari migrated there, leaving the overcrowded homeworld. Tensions decreased. Fighting stopped. Corporal Nari, now a flight instructor, taught young Velthari pilots how to fly. It was strange at first, working with creatures that had tried to kill her not long ago, but they were fast learners and enthusiastic. "You fly like you're angry at space itself," one young Velthari said after a training session. Nari laughed. "That's the human way. We fight gravity every time we take off. Makes us aggressive." "Will you teach us to be aggressive?" "I'll teach you to be good pilots," Nari said. "What you do with that skill is up to you." Dr. Yuna published her research on Velthari biology. It revolutionized the Assembly's understanding of hive minds. The Velthari, in turn, shared their biotechnology. Within a decade, human and Velthari engineers were working together, creating hybrid technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Captain Gina retired from active duty and became an ambassador. She spent her days mediating disputes between species, building bridges where there had been walls. One day, she met with Hive Mother Kalseth on the Velthari homeworld. The planet was healthier now, its oceans recovering, its atmosphere stabilizing. The crisis had passed. "I must ask," Kalseth said, "why did your species help us? Truly, not the diplomatic answer, the real reason." Gina thought about it carefully. "Because we saw ourselves in you. Desperate, scared, doing terrible things to survive. Humans have been there, we've been the monsters, and we've learned that everyone deserves a second chance." "Even monsters?" "Especially monsters," Gina said. "Because the scariest thing about monsters is that they're usually just people who ran out of options." Kalseth's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Your species came from a death world, a place of constant danger, endless struggle. We thought that would make you cruel. Instead, it made you compassionate. How? Because we know what it's like to fight for survival, Gina explained. And we know that the strongest among us aren't the ones who crush everyone else. They're the ones who lift others up. On Earth, in schools across the planet, children learned about the war. About how humanity had gone to the stars and found civilizations on the edge of extinction. About how they had fought. And about how they had chosen mercy when they could have chosen vengeance. Ensign Hyun, now promoted to commander, gave a speech at one such school. People ask me what it means to be human, he told the students. They ask what makes us special, and I tell them this. We're not special because we're strong. Lots of species are strong. We're not special because we're smart. Lots of species are smart. We're special because we choose every single day to be better than we were yesterday. A child raised their hand. But isn't Earth a death world? Doesn't that make us dangerous? Yes, Hyun said honestly. We're very dangerous. But danger isn't the same as evil. We're dangerous because we had to be. Earth didn't give us a choice. But now, out here in the galaxy, we have all the choices in the world. And we choose to help. We choose to build. We choose to make friends instead of enemies. Even if they tried to kill us first? The child asked. Especially then, Hyun replied, because that's when choosing kindness means the most. Decades later, the galaxy had changed. The Velthari controlled a dozen systems, all terraformed with human help. They had become valued members of the galactic community, their biotechnology improving lives across 100 worlds. The Assembly had reformed its military, learning from human tactics but tempering them with Assembly compassion. They were stronger now, but also wiser, and humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners. Admiral Day, now very old and very tired, sat in a garden on the first joint human Velthari colony world. His grandson played nearby with a young Velthari, the two of them building something with blocks and biomaterial. President Bora, equally old, sat beside him. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Day asked. "I think we did the human thing," Bora replied. "We saw people suffering and we helped, even when they were our enemies, even when it would have been easier to destroy them." "The Assembly still doesn't understand us completely," Day said with a smile. "Neither do the Velthari," Bora agreed. "They tell stories about us, you know, about the Deathworlders who came from a planet of fire and fury, who fought like demons but showed mercy like angels." "Inaccurate," Day said. "We're neither demons nor angels, just people." "Just people," Bora echoed, "who happened to answer a cry for help and changed the galaxy forever." They watched the children play, human and alien, building something together that neither could build alone. And in the end, that was the answer to the question everyone had asked. Why did the Deathworlders choose mercy? Because mercy is what separates people from monsters, and humanity, for all its violence and all its capacity for war, had always known one simple truth. The strongest force in the universe isn't the one that can destroy everything. It's the one that chooses not to.